Hi, this is George Alger, and welcome to another segment of Our Ventura TV. Today's guest expert is Joanie Blaxter, who is the Ventura Chapter Leader of the Weston Price Foundation. Welcome, Joanie.
Hey, George, it's good to see you again.
So today we're going to be talking about getting people off of drugs or alcohol, or basically getting them away from addictions through nutrition.
Exactly.
Cool. So just to frame this, there's other ways or other more traditional ways that people are taking or help to get off of addictions. What are some of those?
Well, you know what? There's a fairly high rate of going backwards.
Yeah.
And I speak from experience in that just about everybody in my family on the one side has some kind of drug or alcohol addiction. And you know, it's very hard to get physically and emotionally stabilized once you give up the addicting agent in your body. So what I want to address today is those things that we can do with diet and with supplements to help us get more physiologically stable.
Good. And you know, the topic just made me think, wow, you know, I'm not even aware of how you do get people off. I mean, I've heard of methadone for, you know, some kind of drugs, but it would make sense to me to try to do it in a natural way. I was just wondering, oh, okay, how do people already do it? Or is there really not standards on how you get people off of drugs and alcohol?
Well, there's lots. Our whole medical system likes to approach the problem with changing the biochemistry. So there are lots of systems out there that offer different kinds of pharmaceuticals, etc., to try and help stabilize. And so what I want to offer is how one can do that a bit more naturally using both food and supplements that are easy to purchase.
Good. So let's dive right into that. What would be the most fundamental thing people should know if they were, you know, if they wanted to know more about the concept or the subject of getting off of drugs through nutrition and food?
Mm-hmm. Well, the main thing that I want to talk about today is a almost unknown condition called pyroluria.
Say that again?
Yeah, pyro. What? No, we're not talking about setting fires. Pyroluria is a genetic condition, a genetic tweak. It actually affects 11% of the general population, which is an astoundingly high amount when you consider that virtually no medical personnel are educated in this condition. And in pyroluria, this genetic tweak causes a change in hemoglobin production, such that normally cryptopyrroles are a byproduct of hemoglobin production. And since the body has no use for cryptopyrroles, what it then does is it excretes them. Well, in a person like myself, who is pyroluria, those excretion processes are blocked. So this means that over time, the person develops more and more of these pyrroles, which is a shortened form of cryptopyrroles, in the bloodstream. And the problem with this is that these pyrroles bind up with nutrients. And so in particular, B6 and zinc. And so pyroluria individuals characteristically wind up becoming extremely deficient in these two nutrients. And this produces a whole range of symptoms. Those two nutrients in particular tend to really affect the nervous system. Pyrroles are also known as nervous system toxins, so that not only does it interfere with processes when the body needs zinc and B6 and it can't get them, but you also wind up with the nervous system getting rather inflamed, which in and of itself also produces a lot of nervous system symptoms.
Okay, now we're throwing around some technical terms here, and I'm kind of trying to hang on with my fingernails on what you're saying here, but basically there's something wrong with the blood.
Basically, there's too many pyrroles floating around in the blood. They don't belong there, and so they're binding up with nutrients, especially B6 and zinc.
Okay.
Okay.
So your body gets depleted of these nutrients,
Yep.
and the idea would be to give additional nutrients so that the
Exactly.
body can get back to a normal state.
Yep. And let me read some statistics.
Okay.
So what I said before is that 11% of the population is estimated to have this condition. Now, those people are almost all undiagnosed. But when you start testing populations of people who are, for example, alcoholics, it goes up to as high as 80%. Depressives, as high as 70%. If you're testing folks in a psychiatric ward, it's going to be 50% or more. Also, autistics, ADHD, bipolar, they're all estimated to be at least 50%. And even cancer patients are estimated to have astoundingly high levels of pyrolurics.
Okay.
So this is an underlying condition for many people that causes a lot of nutritional complications.
Good. Now, what would be the solution?
Well, the first and obvious one, which is why I wanted to definitely talk about this today, is it's relatively simple. It's relatively simple to get tested. You don't need to go to a professional, and it's relatively simple to treat it. Although I do highly recommend that someone work with an experienced professional on this condition, because over time the condition can get very complicated nutritionally. But the gist of it is that you simply take high levels of B6 and zinc. And since the degree of the condition, it can be mild, moderate, or severe, is reflective of how many of these pyrroles you have floating around in your bloodstream, and therefore what you need to do is take in enough of the B6 and zinc to override the amount that are going to be bound up, and then you've got to have enough left over for the body's needs. So that's going to vary from person to person.
Okay. Now, do you know what B6 and zinc do in the body?
Well, this is you exactly hit on why it's hypothesized that this condition is so highly associated with psychological conditions and addictions. B6 is necessary for the final stage of serotonin production. So if you're chronically B6 deficient, you're going to be chronically serotonin deficient. So the hypothesis goes that these individuals are chronically depressed, and therefore they're going to self-medicate to some degree with alcohol and or drugs.
Okay, so serotonin deficiency, though, I don't know what that means either.
Okay. Serotonin deficiency is what taking antidepressives is addressing. When a person is serotonin deficient, they're depressed. And interestingly, if a person is actually pyroluric, no amount of antidepressants will really address their depression adequately.
Okay, so give me that again on what B6 and zinc do.
Well, B6 in particular is necessary for the final stage of serotonin production.
Okay.
Zinc is critically important to the immune system. Many studies showing increased levels of zinc intake will cut down coughs, colds, bronchitis, that kind of thing. But also zinc is also very important to the nervous system. So being deficient in those two nutrients is a real big double whammy to the nervous system.
Okay, so there's lots of vitamins, of course, and there's some that at least, I've understood that are associated with healing the body, vitamin C for one, but I've not really heard of vitamin 6 and zinc as needing a special emphasis for anything, but I'm not knowledgeable about the subject either, so, but yet these are the key vitamins for someone who's coming off of addiction.
These are the key vitamins for someone who is pyroluric, and high percentages of people who have addictions seem to apparently have pyroluria. The way to know for sure is a very simple urine test, and you don't need to go to a doctor to get that. I have written an article about this, so if anybody who is listening to this would like to know what those resources are, they're more than welcome to whip me an email. And my email address is simply wapfventura@gmail.com. That's WAPF for Weston A. Price Foundation, Ventura. And I would be happy to send them that article that I wrote. It will tell them not only how to get in touch with labs that can do this simple urine test, it will also give them a list of links to practitioners who work with folks who have pyroluria.
Good. Now you mentioned food as part of this healing process.
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
Well, I think I can't say this strongly enough, and this may come as a big surprise, but fat, and more fat.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I say fat, what I really am emphasizing here is the animal fats. Okay. The reason for that is that in my observation, folks with pyroluria almost across the board also have adrenal exhaustion. Adrenal exhaustion is when we rely on the adrenals on a day-to-day basis for cortisol production and energy. So when the adrenals get exhausted, it means that our cortisol production is on the low side. So we feel tired a lot. And adrenals need a lot of fat to be stabilized, because the key to really giving good steady energy to adrenals is not protein so much, it's really fat. We are really, in my opinion, the human body is much more a ketogenic or fat burner than a glucose burner. You know, we know from looking at anthropological evidence that our genes are 99.995% still exactly the same as Paleolithic our ancestors from several million years ago. And they really relied on moderate amounts of animal protein in combination with substantial amounts of animal fat. It's the fat that really stabilizes our blood sugar levels.
Okay. Now, I'm wondering though, nutrition is not my topic of expertise, but when you emphasize fat, is that what is the most obvious thing that translates into overweight for people? Being overweight?
Actually, it's exactly the opposite. What we now understand from lots and lots of clinical studies, and we actually knew this and they got kind of buried for a while, and now even Dr. Oz understands this. It is not fat that makes us fat. It is the carbs, the sugars, and the starches. And so those also are what turn into the sugar in our bloodstream. And when sugar goes up very quickly, we now understand, then it also very quickly goes back down again. That is very difficult on adrenals. We absolutely need healthy adrenals for good recovery from addictions. And so it's critically important to make sure that blood sugar levels stay stable so that the adrenals can begin to get back up to snuff, producing the energy that we need.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it's new information for me, so let me just throw this into the mix. If we're going to add fat to our diet in a bigger way than we've been led to believe in the past, can we also add chocolate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending. Chocolate is very high up there on the allergen list. And one of the things that happens concurrently with adrenal exhaustion is we begin to be allergic to more and more foods. So you have to see. What I say to everybody is your body is the bottom line. If you notice after you, and characteristically, we crave the foods that we have allergic responses to. When we eat a food that we actually have an allergic response to, the body's not recognizing it as food. And so it actually thinks it's a toxin. And so when that happens, the adrenals wig out and go, oh my God, he's eating a toxin, produce the cortisol. And so the adrenals at that point get a slam to actually produce cortisol, which gives us a nice little energy boost. So we eat our chocolate and we get our nice little high and we go, oh, I feel great. And then if we're coming down off an allergic response, it's not too much longer after that that we kind of crash. So you have to pay attention. You know, how are you feeling at the moment that you eat it? How are you feeling an hour, 2 hours later? That'll clue you in.
Okay, so we'll vary from person to person.
Exactly.
We have run out of time.
Okay.
All right, so I just wanted to thank you for coming once again.
Absolutely. Thank you again, George.
This is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.